you want companies that have high dividend yield, you can get that in the Philippines. But if you notice the narrative, Globe, PLDT, their earnings are good. They've been fairly resilient in the pandemic. But not just that, their dividends are very, very consistent, and they have increased their dividends over the past years. Hey guys, so over the past few weeks and months, I've seen friends and even subscribers share stories of them transitioning, moving out of Philippine stocks and either growing and investing into US stocks or going into the cryptocurrency market. Hearing what their merits are, some of them just really wanted to trade something that's 24/7, some wanted technology, and some wanted also the exciting gains, movements of what's happening in the cryptocurrency market. And for some, they just really wanted to position into large brands and technology companies as well. They've shared their thoughts also on where the economy is headed and the economy not reopening as fast as what everyone hoped. Then you had the vaccine rollouts and everything else in between. I just wanted to share also my thoughts on all of that, because at the end of it all, I love investing in cryptos because I really believe that it's game-changing technology, that we're just so early, that we are just at the beginning of things, that Bitcoin is digital gold, that Ethereum is something that will change the way we would transact and look at money, and the smart contracts that are built on top of it are so amazing. And I also love US stocks primarily because it gives me the ability to be exposed to the largest companies, largest brands, largest technology firms, companies in the world that's changing the way we would see things, that we would do life. In the midst of friends and other people selling, transferring, I stayed. I'm still long Philippine markets. So I want to share my rationale why. Number one, it's all about diversification. Please do remember that there were cycles, there were instances this year where Philippine stocks were down, US stocks, crypto was up, but also it flipped. There were times also, especially during the second quarter of the year, when the Philippines was starting to reopen right after the lockdown that happened last March 2021. When we started to reopen, suddenly we saw the Philippine market start to go up in a time where miners in China were being banned and they were forced to go out, bringing the hash rate lower, bringing the crypto markets lower as well. So there was a portion also where the crypto market wasn't performing as much, where the Philippine market was doing massively better. For me, it's relevant diversification. It's nice to put an amount of money based on where your conviction is. But in my opinion, it's so interesting to spread across your assets into things that are unrelated, into things that are separated also by geography, into something that not connected to each other, because it gives you the dynamic that if one fails, you have another asset class that will do very, very well, or at least you are protected. I don't diversify just for the sake of diversification. Please do remember that it's wrong to diversify para lang masabi na naka-diversify ka, or just for the sake of hindi ko na pag-aralan sige magda-diversify na lang ako. Then that's what I think is wrong. Don't just diversify for the sake of diversification. Don't just diversify also just because you think it's a proper thing to do. Don't just diversify also because di ko na pag-aralan pero mukhang maganda silang 5 stock or maganda yung 10 stocks na to, bilhin ko na lang yung 10. Then that's wrong. Don't use diversification just because you weren't able to study and you want to have a position. That's something that I don't espouse. Please remember that every time you enter an investment, it's your money, it's your responsibility. That's why also you need to take the time to be able to learn what it is. You need to take the time to be able to understand also the nooks and crannies of it. Number two, I'm in the Philippine markets because of dividends. Whenever I talk to my friends who are not based in the Philippines and their positions mainly are in the States, especially for dividend stocks, whenever I share the dividend yields that they're giving here, SPC, Globe, GMA 7, PLDT, you also had what Metrobank gave this year. Then you have other companies that have been giving very, very consistent dividends. Even from Meralco, the yields that we have been getting here from a dividend standpoint is very amazing. That when you go into US markets, maybe you could get 2%, maybe you could get 3%. But if you notice the narrative, Globe, PLDT, their earnings are good. They've been fairly resilient in the pandemic. But not just that, their dividends are very, very consistent, and they have increased their dividends over the past years. Please do note that if you are a person who bought those stocks way back, then your dividend yield right now is way higher. PLDT during the March 2020 drop last year dropped to 900. And think about it also that the dividends that they gave out this year is around 82 pesos. So if you compute 82 divided by 900 plus, your yield is something that's very, very attractive. In the same way, that's how GMA7 is also. GMA7 over the past few years was relatively moving sideways. Their number one competitor, ABS-CBN, also was taken out. Of course, advertisers, a large chunk of advertisers also moved their way. They got to earn more, hence higher dividends, and the dividend yield that they were giving was something very, very high. So I don't buy stocks in the US with an intention of getting dividends from it. So bonus na lang if I get something from it. Like for example, J&J, Coca-Cola, they're very, very consistent in giving out their dividends. But I am not buying Coca-Cola or Johnson & Johnson primarily with the main intention that I want to get cash flow from them. I like Coca-Cola, I like J&J because they are big companies, strong brands, proven track records, and they are very, very resilient. You want companies that have high dividend yield? You can get that in the Philippines. Buying dividend stocks gives you passive income on a regular basis. Of course, you have to study what are the dividend stocks that you should actually buy, because at the end of it all, you're still investing in a company, and of course, if it's a company or a business, there are still underlying risks attached to it as well. But it works for me. Markets dropped last March 2020. I knew that as long as the company was giving out dividend, I could predict cash flow. I could predict what's coming my way. So please do remember that when you start analyzing it from a dividend point of view, that dividends are amazing. And that's one of the biggest allures that I like in the Philippine market. Number 3 is this, and highly connected also to dividends, REITs. I'm a big fan of REITs. And I'm sure you've seen that in so many videos that I talk a lot about REITs. But in a way, no, it's my proxy to properties in the Philippines, but in a way, I'm getting rental income from it. So if we're talking about dividends that were high for the other common stocks that I mentioned earlier, dividends from REITs are also attractive for me. It's predictable because of its rental income, and it can give you also capital appreciation. I've liked it for a very, very long time, and I'm just so happy that they're in the Philippines right now. If you're asking me what are the things that I like in the Philippine markets, diversification, dividend stocks, REITs, but it doesn't stop there. There are some companies that relevant right now that even in the midst of this lockdown, even in the midst of the uncertainty that's going on, we don't know what's gonna happen, when will the economy reopen, they've been resilient. And that's why I like Converge, broadband. We all need it. They're continually expanding. They're very, very aggressive. It's very, very interesting to see that the longer we stay on a lockdown, the larger our reliance will be to broadband. In the same way, Century Pacific, very, very interesting. Their items are essentials, but not just essentials. Their items are brand names. Their items are, what they're selling are staples in our houses. It's something that we would eat over and over and over and over. And in the same way, sa mo bibilin yun sa supermarket. I think Pure Gold is a recipient of us being on lockdown. Why? Because when you're on lockdown, guess what? You're not going out. You're not really traveling. But most likely, since you're cooped up at home, you will try whatever you can to make yourself feel better and eat what you can. Kaya nga, nakakataba during the lockdown because you don't have a lot of physical activity na, tapos you're just eating. A lot of other companies that have supermarkets and groceries also. However, some of them kasi may halo, meaning it's not just purely a supermarket and grocery play. That's what I'm saying. So if you notice the themes of what I'm mentioning, there are companies that are so relevant. AC Energy, Ayala Land Logistics. These are things that right here, right now, hindi lang siya essential, but they're also part and parcel of where we can see the future. And renewables, e-commerce won't just be here to stay, but they're the future. We're seeing the future unfold in front of our very eyes. So those are companies that are so interesting, that I like, that there are compelling stories also outside the Philippines, but there's also great companies here, great teams here that in the midst of the uncertainty, I still have the conviction to invest in them. And I'll add this, there are companies also, and these are companies that I really, really love, that are too big to fail, and are so big that when this lockdown or when this entire season, this era is over, because they are companies that are well run, they are companies with great management, they are companies with amazing track records, guess what? They'll come out of the gates running. Think about it. Just some examples. Ayala Corporation, the longest and largest and one of the oldest conglomerates that we have in the Philippines. Think about BDO, the largest bank, largest assets, etc. So add that all together, there are compelling stories still here. It won't be as sexy as the movement that we're seeing in the cryptocurrency market. You won't have teams like Elon Musk talking about Tesla, but at the end of the day, there's still a lot of things also to do and to invest in the Philippine markets. So diversification, dividends, REITs, companies that are essential and will be part of the future even after this era, and then companies that are so big, so relevant, and well run as well. And lastly, I'll say this, it's nice that we get a shot to also support our country. Our country is so far from perfect. There's so many things that needs to be changed. There's so many things that we need to bring this forward. But in our own little way, every time you spend in the Philippines, every time you invest in the Philippines, it's you actually helping out also to bring this economy and this country forward. You add all of these things together, these are the intangibles on why it's very, very interesting for me to still invest in the Philippines right now. So I want to know your thoughts. Where are you invested, or where are you invested more? Philippines, US, crypto, or put your allocations on how you actually do it. I just want to hear your thoughts, and this is just me just sharing bits and pieces also of not just my life, but the way I perceive things. And I hope that while I share this is something that also adds value to you and it makes you better investors. So there, if you're new to this, my name is Marvin Gurmo. Like, share, subscribe, and smash the bell so you get updated every time I come up with new content about investing, about the stock market, about cryptos. And I hope you guys got a lot from this, and I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon, and God bless you all.